Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. We've done it, ladies and gentlemen. The code is cracked towards being able to take the camera into the ruins of Daybreak town, less than a day after releasing yesterday's Scala exploration video where I mentioned that I would like to be able to take the camera around specifically the ruins to also get a little bit of a feature going on there to just kind of see if there are any type of details that are out of bounds. I mentioned that it was looking like it wasn't likely, mainly because all of the mod menus for Kingdom Hearts 3 that we have currently require the use of a summon to access them, and of course in the underwater segment you cannot use summons. However though, I managed to figure out a workaround. So first things first, I want to say a massive shout out to Critic Perfect, the dude responsible for, of course, the CMod mod menu, as well as Lusu. In this video, I'm using Lusu's mod menu, but it was actually Critic Perfect who gave me the level command to warp Sora into, of course, the underwater segment without being absolutely slapped on the left cheek by Xehanort the entire time. Now, when you're warped to the ruins of Daybreak Town, of course, Sora is still underwater, so the use of the summons is still not there. You cannot summon. However, as I was exploring around the place as Sora, because it puts you outside of the boundaries, if you go far enough outside the boundaries, essentially Sora will stop swimming and he'll start falling. Because of this, it meant that I was then able to use summons, because Lusu's method of accessing his mod menu either requires you to go into Classic Kingdom using Giant Land, or an alternative method is to just simply summon Meow Wow. It meant that I could finally access the mod menu. After a while, when Sora is falling, he'll pretty much be warped back into the playable space of the ruins area, and it means I can now press R2 to activate the mod menu. Now, this mod menu doesn't come with an inbuilt button to activate the debug camera, so I figured out that there is an inbuilt command to just straight activate the debug camera. If you type into the command console of the mod menu, toggle debug camera, voila, there we go, the camera is now ours. So here it is, this is the ruins of Daybreak Town. We can now see it in all of its glory. Now what I will say is there's nothing really inherently interesting in the sense of crazy, mind-blowing hidden details that Square Enix have hidden outside the playable space, but I think just to see the ruins in all of its glory from different perspectives is pretty neat in itself. So the Daybreak Town Tower is the main star of this attraction. Notice the cogs and gears lying destroyed, kind of scattered all over the place. As we know, in the very center of the tower, it almost works as a clock of sorts, so while it is a big castle tower, it is also acting as a clock tower too. So yeah, we'll notice like most of the remnants of the clock tower portion of the tower is pretty much scattered like all over the place, which is nice little attention to detail. Considering that, yeah, while we can see some of these pieces, we don't actually notice absolutely all of them, especially because you're fighting Xehanort during the time of being in this level. You're not really able to take everything in. I also noticed that the balcony portion of the tower that is centered just underneath the cogs, that is here with the rail to go along with it. Again, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of a gat-dang rail, but to know that that little sort of small detail is here is nice, because again, you're not really going to notice it whilst playing in the level fighting Xehanort. Now of course, because we're using a debug camera, it means that we can for the most part clip through basically anything, but there is a portion of this level where I was trying to get a nice underneath shot of the tower, but there is a wall that even the debug camera can't bypass. But seeing the very tips of the top of the tower, like the spires and roofs of each individual tower point, is really cool to see. It would seem as if they ripped the model from the Daybreak Town Tower from Kingdom Hearts key back cover and put it in here into Kingdom Hearts 3. Obviously they touched it up to make it look very withered and damaged, looking like it's been sitting underwater for quite some time. I'll also notice that there are like a lot of rocks that have kind of formed around the tower itself, and because the debug camera can no clip through stuff, I went inside the tower to see if there was perhaps maybe any sort of hidden details in there, but no, there isn't. One thing though that has always intrigued me is sort of the structure that the tower is sitting on. Now, of course, we know that above the surface, obviously, Scala is built on top, and not just Scala, but specifically for this portion, this island right here, the Daybreak Town Tower Ruins portion, the main tower of Scala is built on top of specifically that. So it's always kind of intrigued me, the underneath part, because whilst actually playing during this Xehanort segment, we'll notice like a lot of buildings are up above the tower. I guess if it was rotated, it would be below the tower, but the interesting thing here is Daybreak Town was built on flat terrain. It wasn't built sort of similar to Scala, where it's these massive man-made mountains of sorts. So it's interesting. I don't really know how the architecture of Scala came to be. Yeah, of course, it's obvious that it was built on top of the ruins of Daybreak Town, but how exactly it formed into the formation it is, especially because it seems like it was probably only one man doing it, Ephemer, unless of course at some point he got help from the other Keyblade wielders that escaped with Ava. It sort of boggles my mind a little bit, but we will notice that there is a lot of other buildings that make up the Daybreak Town ruins, and specifically buildings that have a lot of windmills on them. Now, we'll know that Scala is comprised of buildings with a lot of windmills. And I went back through Kingdom Hearts Key back cover to sort of use that Daybreak Town that we see in the movie as a reference, and I was trying to see if there were any buildings in Daybreak Town that had windmills, and no, in fact, there are no windmills to be seen at all in Daybreak Town. Now, of course, we were never meant to see any of this architecture and the buildings and the ruins beyond the playable limits. Don't take anything we're seeing here as actual canon. Just think of this as, yeah, all of these buildings, while they don't look like the buildings from Daybreak Town as we know it, are the buildings from Daybreak Town. At least that's kind of the conclusion we can come up with as of right now, until we get some more knowledge and lore towards the construction of Scala, which I'm sure we will at some point in the future. But I gotta say, even though, you know, a lot of this is very lowly detailed, because again, we were never meant to see this, there is still quite a lot of detail present with all of the different various buildings we see constructed around the ruins. Now, we can take the camera all the way up to the top beyond the surface of the water. No, there is not a Scala built within this playable space. Not that I was expecting that per se, it's just kind of a flat surface. You'll also notice though that there are other islands underneath the water as well, as of course we know Scala is comprised of many different man-made islands, not just the main one with the main tower, but there are several different islands, and they all have interesting looking architecture and constructions underneath those as well. Now, they all have towers of their own, which almost look like the same towers that are built above the surface on the other separated islands. But again, we were never meant to see this, so I am repeating myself here. Don't take any of this architecture that we're seeing beyond the playable limits as proper, actual, true canon. But seeing all of this, it really gets me curious to find out more about Scala's construction. Again, I'm sure we will figure this out and find out about it at some point. But how this came to be, well, yeah, there would have been a lot of leftover rubble from the destruction of Daybreak Town. It still boggles my mind as to how something like Scala Ad Caelum was constructed through the debris of Daybreak Town. One other little detail that I thought was quite interesting that I'll leave you guys with is, while it isn't mind-blowing, when I was going back through key back cover, if you guys remember back to yesterday's video when I was doing the Scala showcase, if you guys remember the sewer lid that I featured in that showcase, the exact same sewer lid is used within Daybreak Town with the big star in the middle and the 3 stars on top. Again, not mind-blowing or anything, but I would only assume that going down into the sewers of Scala would lead you into the ruins of Daybreak Town. It only makes sense as, of course, the ruins are beneath the city. So that is all for today, guys. I'm so happy that I was able to get this out so soon after the Scala exploration stuff. Please, in the comment section down below, let me know your thoughts and opinions. I just want to leave a really quick reminder, while I did mention this in the Ratchet & Clank video, I will be returning to streaming tomorrow. I'm going to leave the time in which we're going to start over on my Twitter, so if you're not already following me there, I'd advise you guys to do so. The link is in the description below. However, guys, I'm Cynical, hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you dudes in the next one. Peace.